September is quite an interesting month in the sense that President Hakainde Hichilema is expected to open Parliament. Beside that, we will be hearing in the last week of this same month from the Minister of Finance, Dr. Stumbeko Msokotwane, as he will be giving the nation the financial blueprint. And beside that, there's so much that is happening from different stakeholders who will be eager to participate and weigh in on these important matters of national development. Today on the People's Space podcast, I am privileged and honored to be hosting one of Zambia's renowned musicians. He is also a social justice advocate. He's a founder of Music for Change. And of course, there's so much that I could delve into just to be able to attach to his name. But so many of you know him as Bflow. But of course, here we'll try and call him Mr. Bwembya. But anyway, we'll stick with Bflow. Bflow, welcome to the People's Space podcast.
Thank you so much, Benson. It's really good to be here. Maybe you also left out Obama Jr.
Exactly.
And maybe you left out President of the Zambia Association of Musicians.
I was actually coming to the President of the Zambia Association of Musicians in my first question.
Okay.
But anyway, thank you very much for bringing up. For those of you that do not know, actually, this is the President of ZAM. And as you mentioned, the Obama part, what I wanted to say was the fact that I'm talking to you now, who has direct access to Obama, you know, I can safely brag when I go back to Komboni and tell the people that, you know what, I met Obama, you know, because I've met somebody who has met Obama.
Nice one. No, it's always nice. You know, it adds a light moment to every conversation. Usually when I go somewhere and someone says, Obama's first son or Obama's only son, since we know he only has daughters.
So you're the only son of Obama.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's always great to have you. And, you know, we appreciate you making time and coming through to just join us on this important conversation that we have. And just to kickstart our, you know, talk, Bflow, I know that you've been involved in so many things. You know, you're one of the very few people that I noticed who approached music with a sense of purpose. You know, a lot of times, you know, I've been around for some time, you know, I've seen different musicians on, you know, and sometimes it's just purely entertainment, you know, just to make people dance, make people feel good. It's about the vibes. But to be honest with you, your coming on the scene came with a different twist altogether. You know, this is a guy that is not just singing, but sort of has a purpose. So just tell us a little bit, who is Bwembya outside the music, the social advocacy work, you know, all these things that you do, the ZAM presidency responsibilities and all?
That's a good one. Away from the music, Bwembya is a young man who was born 30-something years ago in a small town called Kabwe. And I think at the time, Kabwe was one of those, we had ZCCM, and so it was one of those towns that had a lot of industrial activity. We had industries like the Zambia China Mulungushi textiles. We had Kifco for fabric. We had a company called Dunavan. These were the employers of young people after high school, after college. And I remember at the time of my growing up as a young man in Kabwe, we also had one college. It was called PCC. It's now called Mulungushi University. And when it comes to music, there were no facilities. There were no studios whatsoever. There was one radio station called Radio Maranatha.
Oh, radio.
Yeah, so we did not have much, but we had a lot within us. And so we were yearning to be able to churn out what we have in terms of our talents and the giftings that God deposited in us. And so we were looking forward to that opportunity. So in a nutshell, Bwembya is a very curious young man who was born in a small family. My father was a footballer. Yeah, he used to play football at Kabwe Warriors. He was also the assistant coach to Yuka Chitalu. At the time when Yuka Chitalu was the coach for Chipolo Polo, as well as the coach for Kabwe Warriors. He was the manager. My father was the assistant manager at the time. My mother worked as a what they called UT back in the 90s, untrained teacher. And then she later joined the Zambia Police Service. Yeah, so I'm just giving you that background so that you can understand maybe what forms the character and personality that I have. Yeah, so the footballer that my father was obviously is where I probably get the resilience and the fighting spirit, but also the police officer that my mother was is also where I get the fighting spirit and maybe the toughness to take on certain topics, like when we do our activism and when we do our protests and keeping our word and our stance on certain things. Yeah. So growing up, I think for me was a struggle, partly because my parents were not together, and also I lost my father when I was very young. So I lost my father when I was 9. And so I struggled to have a relationship with him at that young age because there are certain questions that I had. And because of that, I feel like certain areas of my life were not as good as they were for other young people. And that in itself, I think, gave me a sense of wanting to work harder to try and change the situation for my mother as well. Yeah. And I always loved education. I loved school. At the time, there was no free education at the time of my primary school. So it actually meant that we needed to pay our school fees. And so I was constantly kicked out of class for unpaid school fees because my mother at the time was only a volunteer teacher. And yeah, so we could not really afford to be in class here and there. And so, but I was really looking forward to a time when I can just, have a paper or some education of some sort in order for me to feel comfortable and for me to pursue my dreams. And on the other side, I was discovering my talent as well through our black and white TV, where we would watch the likes of Victor Kachaka, Ballad Zulu, the Fugees, Bob Marley, and many other artists of the time. And so that also helped me to say, oh, maybe one day I can do that, because every time I came from watching those videos, I'll find myself mimicking, and I'll do it continuously, whether it's the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, the rap by Will Smith. And people would say, he really loves music. And so the first time I ever heard someone say, this child is probably going to be a musician, was when I was 8 years old.
That's interesting. Let's talk about you starting your career journey as a musician, transitioning into advocacy, and now serving in leadership as the president of the Zambia Association of Musicians. What inspired these phases?
Being raised by a single mother, to me, meant that I needed to play a part of amplifying the voice of a woman. Naturally, I just felt like I needed to do something for my mother. I needed to speak for my mother. I needed to be the voice of my mother. So once I got a platform, which is the music in this case and the fame, it was easy for me to channel all those energies into the music. But prior to that, I was also very curious about advocacy right from a young age. So by 7th grade, I was a member of the Child Rights Club at my school, at Broadway School in Kawe. And by the time I went to high school, I was serving as president for the Anti-AIDS Club, president for the Anti-Drug Club, chief printer for the Press Club, disciplinary committee chair for the school library. I also served as a peer educator in what we called the first ever youth-friendly corner for Kawe High School. I had about 8 positions in total. So then when I got to 11th grade, I was selected as a prefect. And then when I got to 12th grade, I became the school head boy. So the leadership comes from there. And so I was very much actively involved in all these psychosocial counseling at school level, being able to offer counseling to fellow students who are struggling maybe with drugs, maybe they were abusing alcohol out there, jumping the school offense to go and partake of what in dancehall terms we call Babylon water. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I think it comes from there. We would hold these candlelight walks and go to visit hospices to go and see the real AIDS situation and understanding the difference between HIV and full-blown AIDS. Yeah, so we were really, really active even at high school level. So by the time I went to college, I was also trained as a peer educator. And so it was pretty much a continuation of who I already am as a person. And yeah, so once I got into the music, I simply said, the same things that I've been doing from the school days, I can simply incorporate them in the music and still continue championing these important messages.
So, in my opening, I had mentioned that the president will be addressing the nation on Friday as he opens parliament. Later on in the month, we'll be hearing from the Minister of Finance with the national budget. Let's start with your expectations, first of all, from the opening of parliament, from the presidential speech.
Yeah.
What are your expectations as the person that was representing thousands of musicians countrywide?
First of all, I am a citizen of Zambia before I'm a musician. And so my expectations, first of all, would be from my perspective as a citizen, that the president will be very honest about the current state of affairs in the nation, and where the president is able to tell the people where we are as a nation, and if there are milestones that we have achieved or that we're yet to achieve. Yes, they can be highlighted, but it's also important to let the nation know how the problems that the Zambian people are facing are being addressed, because this is a very critical year, especially because we're just about 11 months to the general elections of 2026. And so at this particular time, I think there's not much that can be said to try and embellish anything other than just the truth. And so for me, what I would expect is just the truthfulness. But when it comes to the arts and music, I think I would like to hear more about what the government, represented by the president in this case, plans to do for the artists who usually are only remembered before the elections or during elections, because at that time we see a lot of politicians trying to be close to the artists to try and get a campaign song, to try and get an artist on the campaign rally stage, to drum up support and pull a crowd. But we haven't seen much before that. And so there are certain things that we have seen that we are grateful for, like the national arts policy. But we would like to hear more about its implementation, I think.
From the budget side of things, as the minister addresses the nation, what are your expectations?
From the budget side of things, I really, really, really hope that we will get better pronouncements, as well as a better allocation towards the arts sector, because the current situation is really bad. I think between 2022 and 2024, what we have seen leaves much to be desired in terms of the budgetary allocation for the arts. Now, if you can imagine, we get less than 1%, as the arts sector. And the allocation that is given to the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Arts being less than 1% is quite concerning, because you're looking at these are different sectors, if you can call it that, because you're looking at a ministry that has got youth, just the youth alone, their area of need. And you can only imagine how many young people are so expectant of the Ministry of Youth. And then there's sport. And we all know how in this country we love sport. And many times I think the youth and the arts tend to feel that sport is prioritized. But then there's also arts, which to us also has always been a problem, because we've always felt like we are what in musical terms, when you're having an event, we call a many more. because it was Ministry of Tourism and Arts. So we're always the and arts. By the way, there's also the arts. And then it transitioned to become.
But hasn't that changed now that you have one of your own there? Pilato is there now.
Well, it doesn't change the fact that we're a department pretty much, and
It's even a PS for that matter.
we are grateful for that. Yes, we are grateful that one of our own is sitting in that office, but there's still more that can be done to also help him achieve some of the plans that he may have for the sector, or else it will just be one of those things where he also starts to receive backlash from fellow artists to say, oh, maybe he's only there for himself. But would like to see a situation where even when he is seated there, and I know that PS Pilato means well. I have heard from him. I have seen some of the things that he's trying to achieve through his department. Even the National Arts Policy itself sits there. We've seen the interface between his department and the National Arts Council, but still it doesn't change the fact that the National Arts Council itself is so underfunded that they can't even have any activities.
Is that going to change now that we have a board? There was just was it last Monday in the cabinet
recent
meeting?
Yes. So
the board was appointed there.
We hope that can change. We hope that we'll have a board that will be able to speak to our aspirations as the National Arts Associations. We're about 9 or 10 altogether, and all of us have got expectations. We've got the Comedians Association of Zambia. You have the Zambia Association of Musicians. You've got the fashion designers. You've got the dancers. You've got our guys in theater. You have Nataz and several others. All these have got expectations. Now, you can imagine how the arts have grown in terms of how they are received by the public, but also so underfunded such that it's very difficult to create systems and structures. And so we are pretty much doing it in our own capacity by pulling resources from within ourselves as artists, and there's not much that is coming from the national budget. So I want to hear that there's better allocation towards arts and culture in this country.
Before we move on, one of the things that I would like to know about your sector first and foremost is, yes, there's this expectation from government, but are you organized yourselves? Because you mentioned something very important. It's like musicians sometimes, correct me if I'm wrong, okay? And I'm saying this in good faith,
Yes.
Bflow. I feel like sometimes you guys lack foresight at individual level, okay? What I mean is, for an industry to grow, obviously, it starts with the players within the industry themselves. And I'm not saying government doesn't have a role to play. They have a huge role to play. They're responsible for the policies, as you rightly indicated. It's their job to do that. It's their job to support with the funding and everything. But I feel like sometimes you musicians yourselves are not very much organized in terms of being deliberate, coming together and saying, guys, we have an industry to build. Can we play our part even as we advocate for government to give us the right policies that will give us that, power, that thrust locally and internationally? I feel like you guys are not very much organized. When I say that, I'll give an example, Brian. And this is my opinion. You can comment on it. You can correct me if I'm wrong. You can add to it. He as a musician, for example, you have an opportunity of a lifetime. Within 5 years, Brian, you make, say, 5 million kwacha if we put all your earnings together. Why don't we have like a proper state-of-the-art studio? If there's 5 of you that can make that much money, why don't we have a proper state-of-the-art international studio? Why don't we have a school? Why don't we have all these things? I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? I see record labels that come very well and they die.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think the record labels come sometimes with a lot of ignorance about the sector, where someone is just passionate because maybe they've watched Don Jazzy running a record label in Nigeria, or they've seen that Jay-Z has been running Rockefeller and he's got artists like Rita Ora under him, like Beyonce, Rihanna, J. Cole, Kanye West, and several others. And so he's made a fortune. And so they decide to say, oh, we're going to do a record label in Zambia, but they haven't really understood the needs of the artist. And so when the artist starts to say, oh, I expected you to do this, and then the record label becomes so fatigued that because they're receiving all these requests from everywhere. Yeah, so we need professionals. We need people that actually understand the industry to play a part, and we haven't had many of those, unfortunately. The Zambia Association of Musicians itself has existed since 1979, and it's sad to hear not only you but many other people out there think that we are, or say that we're not organized. And unfortunately, I would agree with you that indeed we haven't been organized, and I hope that what we are trying to do is already showing that we are trying to get organized. And for us, I think that's our mandate. Our mandate is basically to organize the industry and advance the interests of our sector. And that's exactly what we're trying to do. So we have really lagged in that regard. I'm not sure whether part of the reason could be the egocentric nature of being a superstar. And you come up on the scene, one person.
I'm talking about ego, Bflow. Sorry. I don't mean to cut you. Before we take a break, talking about ego, like, why are you guys so fascinated about I'm bigger than this one? I've got more money. I've got this and that. Look, I know it's part of a lifestyle. I know it's part of the pop culture and everything. But I feel like sometimes it's pointless to always constantly be trying to outdo each other, to outprove that I'm better than this one, where you're not complimenting each other to grow the industry. What's with this obsession? Tell me, especially about Bwembya.
Yeah, come on.
I'm not mentioning names. Especially you, Kawe chaps.
I will not comment on my town. I'll need to protect the family. But so this sector, which we've always called a social sector, which we for us believe is not a social sector, it's a socio-economic sector.
Thank you.
Has been organized in such a way that most people don't have to undergo any training in order for them to step up and become artists or popular artists. So he is a young man, he's born with a talent and he's singing in the bathroom, in the shower. Then he decides, let me try going to the studio. He goes to the studio, it works out perfectly well for them. They never really planned to become a star. They become a star. They say failing to prepare is preparing to fail. And so you become a superstar, but you are not ready to be a superstar. No one trained you, no one mentored you. And unfortunately, we live in a country where there are very few people that want to mentor others. So usually what you find is it's me, myself, and I. So those that came before the current superstars were holding on to what they have. Those that are there today also are holding on because it's pretty much a competitive sport. So everyone is thinking like, no, it's my space. I should own this space. And for some reason, we don't learn from history. No one is willing to say, you know what? I saw that artist doing it all by themselves and now they are no longer on the scene. Now I am here. Can I behave better? They also continue on that trajectory. And I feel like it's getting worse with the new generation artists in terms of that behavior. Maybe it's also because it's highlighted more due to the advent of social media, unfortunately. And that's what's been happening. So the obsession could be coming from a lack of preparedness for the fame and a lack of training, a lack of mentorship. That in itself has affected how we handle the fame. Yeah, so that in itself, the egocentric nature of the arts has also affected how we organize ourselves. And so everybody has been wanting to work alone. Even when you tell them, belong to the association, you need to be a member of ZAM. This is where you belong. Work as a family. Let's move as a unit so that we achieve certain milestones together as a collective. You find that some people feel like, no, I just want to do it on my own because I want to shine. I want to be a superstar. Then before you know it, it's too late when you come back and say, oh, I would like the association to do this for me or to handle this for me. Maybe you have lost a bit of your relevance and it's a bit difficult for the association to sell you out there, So for us, that's been our emphasis that we need to reorganize ourselves. So I do agree with you even on that thought about us not having been organized. Like I said, we've existed since 1979, but we're still talking about organizing ourselves. And other people actually feel the association has just literally just started now. Yeah, so we have work to do and we're doing the work.
Okay, that's impressive to hear. And as Zam, I'm sure those are some of it's part of the strategies that you're putting in place to be able to provide facilities for counseling and all that
Yes, and
mentorship and all that.
capacity building and workshops and cultural exchange, because we feel our artists also need exposure. Exposure is a form of education, I believe. You
Very
know,
true.
so they need that. Bring in people like Lecrae from the US. He comes here, like he came last week. We have a conversation. He sits down with our artists and shares a few pointers. Next time, we take some Zambian artists to the US, Nigeria, Tanzania, for them to also learn best practices in the sector. Eventually, I think that the mindset will change. I also like how the younger generation is very serious about things like getting their music on the right platforms, streaming platforms, and having ownership of their royalties, getting to understand things like split sheets and how to split between yourself and your collaborators or producers. So we're getting there, and we just want to structure that and make sure that even the older generation can also understand.
It's good that indeed there's progress being made on especially the Zambian music scene. And when we talk about the industry itself and the business side of things, but at this juncture, we will take a short break. And on the other side, Bflow will be talking about important things like how the Constituency Development Fund can be able to benefit the music industry and the sector itself. Also, he will be sharing some of his advocacy work that he has been actively involved in. Remember, in my introduction, I said he is a social justice champion. So he will be giving us a little bit on that. So stay tuned. And most importantly, you can be part of the lucky winners that can walk away with amazing and fantastic prizes ranging from t-shirts, mug cups, capes, and wonderful, exciting memorabilia. All you simply have to do is get interactive on the various platforms, social media, Facebook, YouTube, under the handle Center for Trade Policy and Development, and TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram, CTPD Zambia, on any of the episodes that premieres over there or any of the ads related to the People's Space podcast. If your comment garners more reactions and tractions, you can be that lucky winner. By the way, we don't just give fantastic prizes. We can also create an opportunity for you to meet and have a conversation with important industry leaders such as Bflow himself. See you on the other side.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Wamonk, Navamoma, wherever you're watching me from, countrymen, countrywomen. My name is Jemima Mwava, and I'm also known as the female commander. I am the Unzasu Vice President-elect, and I am here to represent every student voice. So it's your voice, my command, and our change. Otherwise, catch me on the People's Space podcast. Tune in and don't forget to comment, like, and share.
Welcome back to People's Space podcast with me, Winston Mavora. Today, I'm hosting a social justice champion, appropriator of Music for Change. He is the founder of that particular entity. He also serves as the Zambia Association of Musicians president. He is a renowned musician. He is also the firstborn son of Obama. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, I'm having fun with Bflow on this conversation today. And we are looking at so many things ranging from the music industry, his career journey, and his contribution, looking at the social development aspect. Bflow, you have been involved with a lot of organizations doing advocacy work. And I think that is where, a lot of people also got to learn that, music is not just about being in the studio and impacting people from the studio. You can also extend your talent by breaking into new spaces. And I've noticed that you've been doing a lot of work with institutions such as our proud sponsors, CTPD, for this conversation, with the tobacco control advocacy work. What role does musicians, do you think, play when it comes to advocacy work?
Yeah. I think musicians naturally, by virtue of being musicians themselves, are agents of change. Yeah, because they own a very powerful platform. They are followed by a lot of people. People consume their art, their music, their content. And so that gives you great power. And with great power comes great responsibility. And to whom much is given, much is required. So just by virtue of being a musician, for me, I believe that advocacy is supposed to be a part of what you do. So there's no way that you're going to be given this talent by God Almighty and you're only going to just sing about that girl and the features that she has, or you're going to use that talent to objectify the girls. I think there's so much more that you as a musician can do for your community. And so I believe that musicians are opinion leaders. They are also social commentators and they're agents of change. So that's the role that they play when it comes to using their voices for advocacy.
You know, I like the way you've just coined that answer, because as a consumer of music, sometimes we ask ourselves, like, so this guy really sat down and wrote that for who? Like, did they even put thought into this?
Oh, wow.
You know?
It's food. You know, as a consumer, you should appreciate the fact that we've got people like Chef 187 who go in the kitchen to cook.
Exactly.
As a chef.
Exactly.
Yes.
You know, like that, is it Cry of the Woman thing you did?
Uh-huh.
I mean, that was top stuff, you know,
Yes.
like when we're listening to it, that's a timeless piece.
Oh, yeah.
You get it?
Thank you.
So we are able to appreciate when we see a good thing, you know? Not all the time. Anyway, that's not what we're here to discuss. But anyway, interesting. One of the things that has dominated conversation, Bflow, when it comes to the socioeconomic development space is the Constituency Development Fund.
Right.
And for me, it offers an array of opportunities that extend beyond, you know, the political lens that it has been given and limited to.
Yeah.
Even musicians can take part of that, you know, opportunity, of that development tool that government is rolling out.
Yeah.
I would like to find out from you, what do you think musicians or artists can play when it comes to the implementation of the Constituency Development Fund?
I think that artists, first of all, like I said earlier, need to pay attention to the fact that they are citizens before they are artists. They are members of the community before they are artists. So they are supposed to take interest. We are supposed to take interest first in this CDF, understand what it is, what it entails, and also how it is administered, so that we can also be the agents of change that I spoke about earlier. So we can play the advocacy role, we can raise awareness on CDF, how can people access it, what exactly does it do. Personally, I love CDF. I love the decentralized nature of CDF in its current form. The fact that you know, people themselves in a way have a say in the way that it reaches their communities, and artists can play the role of sensitizing, raising awareness on what CDF is, but also they can play the role of utilizing the CDF itself to develop their arts, their sector. There's the skills development aspect in CDF as one of the areas that get that allocation of the CDF once you apply for it. And I believe that artists have an opportunity to also benefit from it because they're members of the community and they want their skills to develop. So they can also take advantage of that. But more importantly, we can also do it in an organized manner, even through platforms like the Zambia Association of Musicians. Yeah, so artists have a role to play in you know, benefiting from it, but also sensitizing and letting the community know what CDF is and the importance.
You know, growing up in Kabwe, you mentioned earlier that there were no studios. There were very limited opportunities for you to express your talent.
Yes.
Those of you that were born with the passion and the fire for music.
Yeah.
A lot of upcoming artists nowadays we see on social media, TikTok, and then, you know, with the proliferation of social media. Do you think that CDF also can be used as a startup booster for these guys that are coming up with so much good talent?
Yes. Thank you. There's a question that you asked me much earlier when you said, when you talked about us being disorganized and why we don't have state-of-the-art studios and whatnot. And one of the things that we've been exploring as the Zambia Association of Musicians National Executive Committee is how best the association can also have access to CDF, because The association is drawn from all parts of the country. Yeah, so we have structures in all the districts and in all the provinces. And so because of that, we see an opportunity where we can literally have a studio in every constituency. Because we have membership in every constituency. So we can have a studio in every constituency. We can apply for CDF and build studios in every constituency, but we can also have what we can call a national studio, maybe in the capital city, where when we talk about collaboration, sometimes let's give an example. Let's say an artist like Chile One is having a show in Lukulu, for example. While he's having a show in Lukulu, he meets an artist from Lukulu who wants to collaborate with him. And this artist has talent. But Chile One is concerned about the quality because the producer that he works with, Mela Beats, is in Lusaka. And the studio that he uses, K Army or any other studio, is in Lusaka, where he feels this is the quality that will help me maintain my standards and my reputation. All that is in Lusaka. So he says, for you to find me, you will need to come to Lusaka. I will not be able to record in your studio in Lukulu. So for me, I believe that if we can organize ourselves and get access to CDF at that level, at constituency level, as the Zambia Association of Musicians, we can literally take quality to the constituencies and make sure that when J-Max decides to perform in Muchinga province, if he decides to perform in an area like Mpika, he shouldn't feel the artist from Mpika should follow him to Lusaka. He can record right there, and indeed, that's how we'll be able to empower the arts even in these other provinces. So these are some of the things that we're exploring around the CDF, and we pray that they will materialize.
Let me take you back briefly to the issue of advocacy. You were doing tobacco control, and I noticed that, you hire artists, and some of them, they come drunk. Some of them are waiting to perform. Bflow is the main guy. He's waiting to perform. There are some opening acts happening.
Yeah.
He's there hammering alcohol. So me, I'm thinking as a person who hired you, like, are you supposed to be doing that? Is it part of the game? Because for me, clearly, there is. I'm not clustering everybody, but I'm just saying there is some substance abuse, drug abuse within your space.
Okay.
So, which compromises professionalism and a whole lot of things. But stemming from your advocacy work, is this something that you're also extending to your sector?
Sorry to mention names. I know, and we have members of our association who I believe do not take any alcohol. They do not take any. They do not smoke any cigarettes. I can give you examples, and I think it will take us an hour for me to mention names.
Everybody
You'll be
else,
surprised to learn that even this one doesn't drink or smoke, even that one. Anyway, let me not mention names because I don't want to make others look bad. But I want to believe that in as much as it is true, it is also not true that, because there are people obviously who've stayed free of any substance abuse whatsoever. People that sometimes may even be considered controversial lyrically, but you'll be surprised to learn that they don't. But yes, we also have people that do these things. Some of them even show it on camera, we've seen, unfortunately. And so part of our programming and the things that we're trying to do in terms of our workshops is not just on things like insurance and pensions and financial literacy and advocacy. It's also got something to do with also trying to change the behavior and maybe helping some people transform into better people in terms of what they consume and what they shouldn't consume. So yes, indeed. So we are trying to also partner with some mental health organizations because that also has an impact on one's mental health as well and mental well-being. Yeah, so we are trying to partner with such entities as well to try and do some workshops around that, and also provide maybe counseling and psychosocial counseling to those that might be addicted. You might be aware that some of our members, for example, Muzo, had to go through rehabilitation. Some of our members, like Chameleon, had to go through rehabilitation with the Great North Road Rehabilitation Center. Yeah. So these are some of the things that we're also trying to do for the sector. We're trying to show those examples in order for other people to also see that it's possible that they too can, can move away from being in a certain space.
So, in other words, the president of ZAM doesn't. Anyway, we'll leave it there.
No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. He doesn't.
He doesn't.
He's a water guy.
Okay.
Yeah. He
not
drinks
even,
water.
Not even.
Nothing. Nobody.
Not even the herb.
Nothing. I know.
Okay.
He does a bit of dancehall and ragamuffin, but he's good. He's free
okay.
of.
No. Anyway, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Back to Constituency Development Fund. One of the things I love the fact that you're able to speak as a citizen. You're able to also speak as a ZAM president. In your capacity as a citizen, what do you think are some of the challenges that CDF has had in order to have that communal impact?
Yeah.
In order to have that, in order for it to be effective when it comes to reaching that person in Kaunda Square Stage 1, in Mutendere.
I think that somehow our governance structure itself and culturally what our political system has become has also contributed to some of the challenges that CDF may be faced with when it comes to things like our political affiliations. And so you find that if you are red, you feel like maybe you are more entitled to the CDF than the one who is green. But previously, the one who was green also felt like maybe they deserved it more than the one who was red. And that's been the political system we've been dealing with. And so you find that as a result of the toxicity around our politics, there will be possibilities of favoring those that are on your side in a way. And, for me, that's one of the challenges. Another challenge that I think it's around the remuneration or motivation towards the WDCs. The Ward Development Committee members, if they are not well remunerated, they play a very important role in being the point where they receive these applications from members of the community, and somehow what they will hand over to the Constituency Development Fund Committee may be up to them. And I can only imagine if a WDC decides and says, this person who has applied was known to support that other political party, and so this one will discard and will only submit this one that is coming from our member, our card-carrying member, and this is the one that will advance forward. And then the Constituency Development Fund Committee will also look, and if they have their membership somewhere, they will see to say, this one is our member, this one is our guy, this one supports us, and maybe these are the ones that we award. So I think that the political system itself, the political nature of the administration of CDF for me is a bit of a challenge, because it's a bit difficult to prove who is receiving. And then also, I feel like when we talk about CDF, sometimes on paper, we hear so many good pronouncements around it. But when you go in the community and you speak to people, some people think that CDF is only on paper. Like, it's a simafika kuno. TV so chape.
And just on that one, Bflow, transparency, for me, it brings in the question of transparency. Even when it comes to the issues of projects. I had an interaction with a few people in a named constituency in Lusaka, where I asked, so CDF, do you know about it? And the answer they gave was similar to what you're expressing. And when I had a word with an area member of parliament, he said, we bought a grader.
Yes.
So I asked them, did you guys say you wanted a grader? They said, but who did they ask?
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
when it comes to the issues of transparency, what are, as you were giving that thought?
Yeah. So that also is a challenge, because the reason we elect our representatives is in order for them to represent our aspirations and our ambitions as members of the community, because we can't all sit in parliament. We're in millions, So if your representative decides that, no, guys, this is what we are giving the people, when the people actually needed something else, maybe they needed a clinic, maybe they needed some school classroom blocks, to be extended, then it becomes a problem. And so that in itself, that's why I'm talking about the political system itself. It's a bit of a challenge, because it's even difficult for you to know whether this was really what the constituency needed, or it was just imposed. It was just given to them because someone who sits in that political system or in that political structure decided that this is what they will bring, which may not be representative of their needs. So for me, all those are challenges, and it's all stemming from the structure, which is political.
As we get to wrap up our conversation, Bflow, obviously we've seen musicians taking up the political carriage to declare that they are now not be people that will be used to sing on the stage and cheer for these guys, but they will actually be the guy on the stage.
Yes, and they'll grab a seat at the decision-making table.
Exactly. We've seen Mark II.
Yes.
People already calling him honorable, and I was happy, and I wish after this you can call him and tell him to come here, so that we can have a conversation. And a few others, So I also saw you, I think, post something about, was it Serenge? You talked about Serenge, Kabwe. You did a whole lot of subtle political geography there, And I was just looking, I'm like, are we
Why are you not mentioning
sing?
King's Malembe as well? He's standing somewhere.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Lupososhi.
Oh, Lupososhi.
Yes.
Brilliant.
We have more, actually.
That's wonderful. Okay.
Yes.
Anyway, we'll definitely bring them over here.
Yes, we also have some comedians.
Yeah, I know Salubosi is already a counselor.
Yes,
which is good. But
we have another musician, he used to call himself Cystic, who's currently a counselor somewhere in Ngombe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are we likely to see Bflow also stepping onto the political scene and enforcing the change that he would like to see in consultation with the people?
It's a possibility. Yes, it is a possibility. You may see Bflow step up in the governance space as a leader somewhere. And I want to take this opportunity to commend people like Makitu for the courage that has been exhibited, and the fact that he has stepped up to say, you know what, I think I have spoken for quite a long time. It's now time for me to sit at the table and also be able to provide some solutions to some of the problems that my people in Changa are facing, and the many other people that are considering taking up political office, with the likes of Kings Malembe, many other musicians out there who haven't yet announced, but we know that they're also planning to do so. And particularly young people. I am passionate about the youth. It's good to see young people stepping up, and it's inevitable. I think that our leaders in all the various political parties that we have in the country should be willing to embrace this change that is happening, this movement, this wave, because it is coming, whether they like it or not.
Lastly, Bflow, before my producer kills me, lastly and briefly from you. Next year, we're going to the polls. And earlier on, you mentioned that a lot of musicians, it's like they wait for this time. To them, it's like, this is the only time we can make much money, and things like that. And for me, I feel like this same arrangement has also partly divided the sector, as you mentioned earlier on, because people are forced to pretend to align with certain political groupings for the purpose of remuneration gains. We are likely to see musicians again take up the stage and say, okay, we're going to sing for this one, they'll pay us this much. What would be your word to those musicians?
Yeah.
And as Zam, have you been working to make sure that you engage your members not to become tools or means to certain political ends for certain individuals?
Yes, indeed. The association does play the role of providing guidance, and that's something that we are already doing in terms of having conversations with some of our members. But we are also respectful of the fact that we're in a democratic dispensation where people also have the freedom of choice to be able to choose where they want to be, freedom of association, assembly, and many other freedoms that they enjoy as citizens. So our view as an association is that our musicians, first of all, are in business. They should not reduce themselves to becoming tools, to advance other people's interests by way of simply using them for that one transaction. And they use you in such a manner that you are so political, even in the way that you come out. So this is the type of guidance that we'd like to provide to say, you can go and get your money, yes, but we do not want our musicians to be used as the ones who are doing the character assassination of that individual and that individual. But we're also mindful of the fact that in our current political environment, there is not much tolerance. And so people might not really understand you, even if you're just doing it as a business. So you have that choice, but you also need to be mindful of where we are politically. I don't think that we are very mature politically for us to understand that this guy was just paid to do his job to sing this song. It's not like he really believes in the ideologies, or this person was just performing at that rally the same way he performs in that club or at that road show or anywhere else or at that festival. But people will take it like, oh, so that's the side that you've chosen. So we want our artists to also be mindful of the fact that they have fans everywhere, fans who might not agree with you politically, who may want to support that other one when you are seemingly supporting that other one. And so we hope to be able to provide some of that guidance, and we just pray that the people out there can also be a bit tolerant and understanding of the fact that these musicians are also trying to survive
To earn a living,
in a society where their budgetary allocation is below 1%.
Okay. Thank you very much, Bflow.
Thank you for having me, Winston.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. My guest has been Bwembya, popularly known as Bflow. And obviously, it's a name that doesn't need introduction. And we've been discussing quite a lot, issues of the music industry itself, looking at also on a national perspective when it comes to key policies such as the Constituency Development Fund. We've also delved into some of the advocacy work that he's doing that extends beyond the music industry, but looks at the well-being of the general human being within spaces such as the tobacco control in collaboration with the Center for Trade Policy and Development. But most importantly, we've also looked at some of the things that can be done to be able to improve just the social development, the socioeconomic developmental landscape from an artist point of view. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch. And remember, you can win some amazing prizes by simply being interactive on our social media platforms under the handle the Center for Trade Policy and Development on Facebook and YouTube, CTPD Zambia on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. If your comment on any of the episode or teasers of the People's Spade podcast garners traction or more comments or reactions, you might just be that lucky winner that can walk away with amazing prizes such as t-shirts, mug cups, hoodies, and various fantastic accessories that you can use. And beside that, we also offer an opportunity for you to be able to interact and interface with our guests as the lucky winner, should you desire. So please, let's get interactive and see you next time.